T-shirts and all of that other stuff. Peace, greetings everyone. First I want to thank everyone for their presence here on the 23rd annual Day of Remembrance in memory of my son. I'm quite sure that all of you know that Nicholas Jr., 13-year-old honor student, was murdered in this community by law enforcement. He actually was murdered in this building right here. It was covered up by both District Attorney Charles Hines in 1994, and again, just last year, members of the DA's office under Ken Thompson and Eric Gonzalez also closed the case and presented to me upon closing the case false evidence, fabricated lies. And it's just sad that right now we have Eric Gonzalez who's supposedly running for district attorney. I tell you now, that is definitely a wrong choice. They still have these police roaming our communities, terrorizing our youth, and they also have, Queen Sister, please come here for Diane.
Oh gosh. Today I'm here to talk to you about my son, whom a lot of you may or may not know. Man. Man is silly, incredibly smart, loyal, thoughtful young man. When he considers you a friend, he stands by you and always have your back. He's a little brother, a big brother, a son, my son, a grandson, nephew, and friend. He's a human being just like you and me. Oh gosh.
You got it. Take your time.
Okay, I'm shaking. I'm sorry.
Take your time.
Okay.
You're doing fine.
Just take your time. Take your time. Take your time.
It's all love.
Okay. 2 years ago, he was stolen from our family and community and charged with 4 counts of attempted murder over an incident that happened in Red Hook. After being charged, he refused to plead. Thank you.
I got you. Take your time. Take your time. I got you.
It's hard.
It is. Just take
It's
your
all
time.
love.
Okay.
It's okay. It's all right.
Okay.
Don't worry about it. You ain't gonna fall. If you fall, I'm falling with you.
All right. I don't want us to fall.
I got you.
All right.
Good. Take your time.
Okay. After being charged, he refused to plead a deal and asked to take the case to trial because he is innocent, and was later convicted and sentenced to 100 years in prison. I'm sorry, my phone is ringing.
That's all right.
Okay.
You know that. They call back.
We are out here today because our criminal justice system does not work in our favor, regardless of whether we are being gunned down by police, racist police officers, or incarcerated at alarming rates by officers out here pretending to be our friends, as they collect personal information on us that they later use as they see fit in order to enslave more black bodies. My son and Nicholas Heyward Jr. were both victims of the same racist, corrupt system. A corrupt, racist system that continues to attempt to exterminate black people by any means necessary. When man was arrested, we were able to seek to hire a private lawyer. During the trial, the judge gave that lawyer an ultimatum: step down or lose your right to practice law, which basically meant he'd be fired. The judge then went on to assign a court-appointed lawyer for trial who had no real interest in man's case. Not only did thousands of dollars go down the drain, the counsel of our choice during trial, there were an overwhelming amount of significant evidence that would have cleared him that was not introduced to the jury during the trial. At the denial of the judge overseeing the case, in a case that should have been opened and closed for my son because there is absolutely no evidence implicating him. He is somehow serving a 100-year sentence at one of the worst prisons in America at a ripe age of 25. There is an overwhelming amount of evidence that will allow man to come home on appeals, but in order to do so, we will need to raise an enormous amount of money to cover the cost of one. Our goal is to reach $15K, and we are almost a third of the way there, and you can help us the rest of the way there. This is our last opportunity to have justice served for man, and he's dependent on all of us. His Gowanus community, the community he pledged his allegiance to come together and organize for his freedom. Part of that organizing includes making whatever donation you can to his attorney fund. No amount is too big or small, as his life literally depends on it. It is because that I understand this system forces people like you and me, like our brothers and sisters who are locked up, like our brothers and sisters still struggling to survive right here in Gowanus, into positions that require us to do what we need to do in order to survive. And by survive, I mean make ends meet. Put food on our family's table, close our children's back to make sure that they have the need for school and that they have child care. Okay, we may or may not need order to continue working because I know it forces us to struggle. I will stand by my people today and always in this fight for justice. If you are my son's friend, a family member, a neighbor, a community member of my son, help us, his family, set him free by donating to his attorney fund. Our most pertinent need right now is raising the $15K in finding a quality appellate lawyer. If you are unable to assist in those areas, but can donate time to help us fundraise and organize rallies. If you're an artist and can put up on a show and donate some of the proceeds to the attorney fund. If you're a journalist, writing up on quality and truthful articles about the case, including the fundraising link, such as the one posted on the Huffington Post website. There's so many ways you can help, and we hope that some of you will be donating money and or time to free man. We will not rest until he's home. I have a money bag. If you can donate, please place your money. I have a bag that you can place your money into. If you do not have cash, you can come with me and I'll pull up the online fundraiser site. You can use your credit or debit cards. We also have t-shirts for sale, which are $25 each. My daughter actually has them, but if you want one, she can bring them to Gowanus. But just know that all the proceeds will go to my son's attorney fund. Thank you, everybody, for your support.
My son's birthday. I mean, this is really, really painful and emotional for me right now today. Just knowing that, today Nicholas would have been 36 years old. But again, I just want to thank everyone for being here and for all of the support that you have given to me and the families. Thank you so much. Thank you.
They are not investigating these cases to find out the truth as to what happened to our children by law enforcement. They are actually out there finding ways to justify the killings of our children. After they closed my case, I couldn't get any of their records or reports right then when they were giving it to me. I had to go through the Freedom of Information Act in order to get any type of information on their investigation. When I got all the information, actually wasn't all the information, but it's just even painful just to even look and watch this stuff. This stuff right here that they actually gave me is falsified evidence. It's supposed to be a crime scene report. And clothing that they claiming belong to my son. None of this is true. None of this is my son's clothing. And I mean, it's just sickening to me that they using all of this stuff here to actually justify these cases. When I look at all of the other cases, Chantel Davis, Kamali Gray, all of these cases are not being investigated. Yeah, I want to say these cases are not being investigated, and that's why it's important that we stay together and unite as one. That is a must. We must work together to actually expose. That's what I do now. I expose the reality of what this system does and how they continuously cover up every single case of police killing innocent, unarmed children. Men, women, and children, as a matter of fact, including grandmothers and grandfathers and small little children. I mean, they justifying every one of them. And we have to put it in and stop it. Can the families please come forward over here, please? I don't know everyone that's here, but yes, Miss Natasha, you are definitely one who needs it, because I actually remember the day when Chantel was murdered. I was actually in the Bronx at the Molly Graham vigil. Molly Graham was having something in the Bronx when I heard about the Chantel Davis murder, and I immediately came back into Brooklyn. And when I got there, I seen the police removing the cameras that was out there.
The camera saw what happened.
And like I said, that's what they do. they immediately do what they can to cover up and justify these murders. The first thing they had to do is get rid of the evidence that showed exactly what was going on and exactly what happened. Mr. Tasha. Yes. And like I said, we must work together. Chantel Davis' sister.
Well, like Nicholas said, I'm the eldest sister of Chantel Davis, and like I was telling Nicholas, he's been doing this for 23 years, and my sister was killed 5 years ago, and I wouldn't know what to do without Nicholas. And I told him he can't stop, because if he stopped, then I don't know what I'm gonna do, because I pull my strength from him, families that came before. It's like amazing that we have somebody like Nicholas that could help pull us through, like he said, these cover-ups. A few weeks ago, I found out that they supposedly closed my sister's case also from Charles Hines, the corrupt DA, and never notified us. Never notified the lawyer.
It's cold.
We've been fighting, marching, want to see the tapes that they took. They took people's cell phones. They took it was about 8 cameras from around the neighborhood stores that they took, and no information. So now we're just fighting to find out, number one, where are those tapes? I want to see what you supposedly closed, if this case is closed. Ken Thompson, who's no longer here, he supposedly looked into the case and didn't reopen it. And then you have the acting DA, Gonzalez, who right now we're waiting to have a meeting, but he keeps stalling the meeting to get through September. These elections that's coming up, he's stalling right now with the family. It's just like there's no common courtesy. Your loved one get killed, no one gives you there's no apology. It's nothing but excuses of why this happened.
What I did when I bumped into Ken Thompson, I showed him the deposition that was done on the officer, which contradicted all the Charles Hines reasons and findings for closing that case. And he immediately told me he got to take another look into this case should he become the district attorney. And that's what he did. He took another look into the case. But he died before the case was completely investigated or whatever. Eric Gonzalez, some ADA up in there named Kelly Musa, and actually almost every ADA that's in that office right now was in there when Charles Hines was the DA. They all are still corrupt in that office. And that's not only happening in Brooklyn. That's happening all over. All over that's happening. I remember when I heard about the Eric Garner case, they tried to justify Eric Garner's murder by saying that this brother was selling loose cigarettes. Eric wasn't selling no damn loose cigarettes when he was murdered. He wasn't doing actually anything but helping to break up a fight. That's all he was doing at that day. But yet they want to try to use a person's past to justify a killing. That's something that is unacceptable, and we should never ever accept that. And I'm so honored to have his mother here, Ms. Gwen Carr, who I support, and I will continue to support her. Ms. Gwen Carr. And not only that, this sister right here before moving to Staten Island was my neighbor who lived right across from me.
Right. I walked these streets many days.
Exactly.
Yes. My kids grew up down here.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, yeah, we're here today. It's been 23 years that Nicholas been fighting this fight. Almost a silver anniversary. But it's not really an anniversary. It's a commemoration that we have to come here for over and over and still fight the system. Because if we don't fight the system, they think we'll go away. So that's why they so heavily try to suppress what we're doing. Because this fight is not a popular fight. But we do it for our loved ones, and we do it for your loved ones, because we don't know who's next. So we have to help each other. We have to lean on each other. And this is what we do as families. We come together. We laugh together. We cry together. We lean on each other because this is what we do. We don't know any other way because we are still looking for justice. Nicholas been looking for justice for 23 years and he hasn't found it. I'm looking for justice. It's just been 3 years, but they give us the dog and pony show. Every time we meet with the DOJ, it's a new story. They got new people who's taking up the case. They're turning over every rock. Why you have to turn over every rock? You see what happened. The whole world seen what happened. And to add insult to injury, we didn't even get an indictment. How are we supposed to react to this? But you know what? We are doing our part and we have to do our part. If we have to keep on these public officials, if we have to go to Albany, whatever we have to do. Chantel knows. We've been to knock on Governor Cuomo's door. We've been there with makeshift corporates to tell them we want justice. We wanted a special prosecutor, which we got. But only like they harassed us, we have to harass them. And this is what we're going to do. We're going to stand with each other. Nicholas, I will stand with him as long as it takes for him to get justice. My fellow mothers and fathers, they stand with me. We're all looking for justice. None of us has gotten justice. But we know justice is not free. We have to go and demand it. Because they're not giving us justice. All they give us is the runaround. And we're not backing down. We don't care what they say, oh, this case is closed, this case is closed. We'll open them back up because something you missed.
That's it. That's right. Open them back up.
That's right. Open them back up. That's right.
Open them all up.
And this is why we support the people who don't even know us. There is thousands of us out there that people never even heard their name. They never got an article in the newspaper, but they hurt like we do. And we will continue and continue. We will go back. You send us away, we coming back. We are fighting back because sooner or later we will get justice because we're going to demand it. And thank you for keeping up the fight. I commend you.
This is another thing that needs to be brought to the light. I also, because of my fight and my struggle, I have become a target. I have been wrongly arrested by the police, falsely charged, false charges. Also, they have my brother Joshua, please come up. Yeah. This here is another family, he's a family member, his uncle was murdered. He continued to fight the real fight to bring justice not only for his uncle, but for every family member whose loved one was murdered by the police. This brother stands up. And he also has become a target. And this brother right here, I love you so much, my brother.
I love you as well. I love you like a father and a brother.
Exactly.
You mean so much to me.
And we will continue to work and fight together, along with all of the families. And the organizations also need to be mentioned also for their struggles and their fights and their refusal to back down. But Brother Joshua, let them know about yourself, brother.
I'm Joshua Lopez, and I just want to say rest in peace and happy birthday in heaven with the ancestors to Nicholas Naquan Heyward Jr.
Thank you.
And you know what? As long as I'm alive, I will always continue to stand up with these family members. You know, Nicholas has been fighting for 23 years. He's the strength that I've been getting throughout these 6 years. Next month will be 6 years that my uncle was murdered by an NYPD officer. My uncle, John Collado, well, that's how America wants to hear his last name, but he was pronounced John Collado. And, you know, he was murdered. Next month will be 6 years. He was breaking up what he thought was a fight, and one of the persons involved in the fight was an undercover police officer. and my uncle had no idea this was a police officer. When he tried to separate them, you know, he got the police officer just pulled out his gun and murdered him. And you know, he was only 43 years old, just like Eric Garner, and just like Eric Garner, he was breaking up a fight. So, you know, I've been through a lot throughout these 6 years in the struggle. I was just in Charlottesville fighting against the Nazis.
That's right.
And you know, I got pepper sprayed 3 times, for those that don't know. And I just kept coming back and fighting, because that's what we must do. We must love and support each other and keep fighting. We can't give up. You know, the system is not going to support us, so we got to do it on our own, and we got to get organized. And I'm here for everybody, and I thank all the organizations, the supporters, the family, everybody out here. Thank you all, and I will never give up as long as I'm alive. And I thank you, Nick. Love you. Love you all.
All right.
Thank you, Joshua.
Joshua, look, it might not be appropriate. What's your favorite saying about the police?
I have nothing about them. Look, you can see it on my neck, FTP right there.
Respect. All day.
When we see the responses to police killings around the country and the activism, a lot of that is tied to Nicholas Heyward, because he's represented someone who has never given up. And so that when we hear about different names, a lot of it comes back to Nicholas Heyward, because he represents an inspiration in terms of not backing down and never giving up. And that's something that we have to. Harriet Tubman once said, "I freed a lot of slaves, but I would have freed a lot more if they had known they were slaves." He represents a Harriet Tubman in terms of understanding the necessity for struggle in every sphere. You know, we have to push every button, but the most important button is us being out in the street, because that's the only thing that the system ever really responds to.
That's right.
They make a cost-benefit analysis of what they're going to give up based upon what are the repercussions going to be to their economy, to their sense of order, and if they think it's going to be too much, then they'll give somebody up. They'll give up a Liang, and even doing that, they give them up, but then say, we're not going to put you in jail. So the message it sends to the police is, you know, you can even kill somebody in cold blood, and we can even convict you, but you're not going to jail. So it just reinforces that message. The killing by the police is the most extreme example of a campaign that's going on. We were brought over here, black folks, Africans were brought over here for economic reasons. It wasn't social, it was economic reasons. It was to create a profit. The nature of this economy has changed, that it's no longer profitable to have a lot of unemployed people to replace workers, because a lot of workers are being replaced by machines. So the only profit-making use for Africans now is in the prisons.
Yes.
So that's one issue. Right. But the long-term plan is we're no longer on the agenda. We're off the agenda. And they move in different ways. And we can see it, as I say, the police killing is the most extreme example, but we can see it in terms of the gentrifications of our community. And so we don't use the term organization. I'm part of an organization called the December 12th Movement. We don't use the term gentrification. We call it what it is. It's ethnic cleansing.
That's right.
It's ethnic cleansing, which is a human rights violation, which is a crime against humanity. Because once we begin to understand what it is, and we're dealing with it as being the victims of a crime, we'll be able to put all the different manifestations of how they come at us in perspective. And once we know it's a crime, then we need to struggle and call out everything as it is. And that should re-energize us. That should help us pull the different branches, because some people deal with the question of police extermination of us. Some people deal with the housing question, the death by education in our schools, what you can go into a hospital semi-healthy and come out dead. So we have to understand how we're under attack. We have to understand that we're in a war. It may not be a declared war. We who may not even be aware of it, but there's a war being waged against us. And I think the remembrance helps to remind us that this is going on, hopefully helps to inspire us to our own energy and commitment to waging that war, and also bringing other people into it. Sometimes people get a little discouraged because they say, well, there should be more people. That's not the issue. You know, Marcus Garvey once said that when all else fails to organize the people, conditions will. So as we give this message, people may hear it, it may not click in with them, but as conditions worsen, and they're worsening very quickly, it will bring out, just by force, people will be forced to become engaged and hear what our message is.
Me and Anthony are here representing Cop Watch. Jewel from BYP was just talking about how we have to start to look out for each other. Cop Watch is a way that we can all become everyday activists all the time, and this is how we are making a physical, tangible way to look out for each other. Me and Anthony are part of Cop Watch Patrol Units, CPU. I teach Cop Watch trainings. I'm gonna bust it down for you real quick in about 5-10 minutes, but I teach a full training that's about an hour and a half, and after you leave out of my training, you are equipped to start a Cop Watch in your neighborhood that very night. And so what Cop Watch is exactly what it sounds like. It's using what you have available, your cell phone, your pen and pieces of paper, your eyes and your ears, and watching police interactions with the public. First and foremost, if you don't remember anything that I say, it is legal to watch the police in New York. It is legal to watch and film the police in public from a reasonable distance. Now, they will never tell you exactly what reasonable distance is. You'll have to figure that out in the moment. A general rule I like to say is get as close as possible. All right? Get as close as possible. The other thing I want to tell you guys is if you're going to use your phone, where do you want to hold your phone? And when I ask people how they record people, they always do this. Absolutely not. Do not record like this. This does two things. One, it makes it super obvious that you are recording. Okay? We want to catch the police in their natural habitat. So you might not want them to know that you are recording right away. Secondly, if I'm a police officer that does not want to be a TV star today, it's very easy to slap, grab, and remove this. In fact, they just had to, the CCRB just had to tell the police to stop doing that. So if they had to tell them to stop doing that, that means they were doing that, okay? So hold your phone right about here at chest height. Also, it helps to not get absorbed into your phone, because as a cop watcher, you immediately put yourself in danger of interacting with the police. And you know, when you interact with the police, you are in danger for harassment, bodily harm, arrest, and or death, okay? As a cop watcher, I've experienced all three things except for death, okay, you guys? So, because I was too focused in on my phone, the police broke my ribs. I did not see them coming in. They did not want to be filmed that day. So keep your phone right about here. All right? Never, ever, ever turn it off. Once you start recording, do not stop recording. Stay with that situation till the end. What is the end? The end is till the person you are recording has safely been removed from the scene. Whether that is they were able to leave on their own, whether that means they are arrested and taken away from the scene, or they are in an ambulance. You need to stay to the end of the scene, possibly longer, because we have cop watchers who have caught police tampering with evidence after everybody has left the scene, okay? But you are, once you pull out your phone, you have made a commitment to this person that you are now watching out for them. I almost want you not to record if you're going to stop in the middle of your recording, okay? So once you pull out your phone, you are recording, and you have made a promise to that person to stay for the whole entire event. Secondly, what are you going to do with your camera? What are you going to do with your footage after you record it? You're going to release it, okay? You're going to upload it to your favorite social media. If you are afraid of retaliation, because it happens, if you are afraid that you have caught something that might have the police retaliate, send it to Cop Watch Patrol Unit. We will release it for you anonymously so that you remain safe, okay? This is how we begin to look out for each other. How do you know if a situation needs to be cop watched? If you feel it does, it does, okay? If you see one too many police officers on the scene, that's probably a situation. If you see anybody, the police officer or the civilian, visibly upset, record. If you see physical injuries, either the police officer or the civilian, record. If you see weapons, get somewhere safe and record, okay? And last but not least, groups. Yes, last but not least, grab somebody with you and ask them to record with you. If you are with a friend, never, ever, ever cop watch alone. I do that often. I'm experienced. I shouldn't. But let somebody know what you are doing and then try to recruit somebody right next to you. Just like if somebody gets hurt, everybody should call 911. If somebody's being harassed or by the police, everybody needs to be recording at the same time from multiple angles. Okay, you guys?
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having us. My name is Bina Ahmed. I'm a public defender, criminal defense practice. I'm here on my own, not representing a group, just with myself. MJ, and I think David, if he wants to come up, or I'm putting him on the spot. But we've been doing radical know your rights trainings for state targeted communities for a very long time, from a prison abolition and police abolition perspective. As lawyers, first, thank you for trusting us to be here and to stand in solidarity with you, and for trusting us to fight for your rights in court and to be in the struggle with you. So just very, very briefly, we're going to go over just a few things you should say based on invoking your rights, protecting your rights when and if you're stopped by the police. I just want to say this isn't by no means bulletproof, as we know. This is, of course, we know what rights are sort of in quotes. Of course, you're most protected if you're a straight, white, male, cisgender, heterosexual U.S. citizen, and then you're least protected if you're of color, transgender, not a citizen. And the way that you interact with police is very much, that's going to obviously be reflected upon how you identify and how you present. So not everyone can interact and speak back to the police in the same way. So just want to put that out there at the outset. Sure, some magic words. Okay, so if you are, and I want people to then repeat after me or respond to me. So if police come and stop you on the street, and they first stop you and say, excuse me, can I talk to you? I need to talk to you for a second. That's called the conversation stage. You should do it like physically. So this is the conversation stage. So when they stop you, you can and likely should answer basic, non-incriminating biographical information. So if they ask your name or where you're going, keep it to 5 words or less. Remember the 5-finger rule. Don't run off because you're nervous and you're just going to talk and talk about where you live and everything. Just, my name's Bina. Where are you going? I'm going home. Right, those 3 words. I didn't say, where I exactly lived, my address, my neighborhood, nothing like that, right? So that is the first interaction of the conversation stage. After you answer those basic, non-incriminating biographical questions, you should say the first set of magic words, which is, am I free to leave? Repeat after me. Am I free to leave? Now, if they say yes, calmly walk away, don't run, that will escalate the interaction again. Now, if they say no, you're not free to leave. Now, you're in the detention phase. You're not free to leave. You still never have to talk in terms of giving over information about you, your organizing, confessing to anything ever, no matter what happens. So now you're in the detention phase. So once they say, no, you're not free to leave, then you say, okay, well, are you detaining me? That's the next set of magic words. Repeat after me. Are you detaining me? Now, for our purposes, we're going to assume that they're going to say yes. It would make sense if you're not free to leave, you're being detained. So if they say yes, this is the point sort of in the middle where you want to now let them know that the point of a detention is to get information from you or to harass you, right? That's why they're going to detain you. Either investigate something, get information, get you to start talking, and maybe get yourself arrested or confess to something. So what you're going to say after they say, yeah, you're not free to leave, and yes, you're being detained, you're going to say, okay, I wish to remain silent. Repeat after me. I wish to remain silent. Now what that tells them is, okay, I'm not free to leave, I am being detained, but fine, you can detain me, you're not getting anything from me. So this detention is going to be pointless. I'm not giving you information, right? I'm going to remain silent. Now this is the point where they can start patting you down under your outer clothing to feel for weapons. Now again, all of this is in air quotes. We know cops often do whatever they want to do, but this is where, for the interaction, for us to learn where they could pat you down. They're supposed to only pat down the outer parts of your clothing to feel for weapons, something hard and metal. If it's something squishy and soft like a dime bag, they're not supposed to go in your pocket and search it because could never be a weapon. So they can just start to pat you down. They might ask you, they might say, can I pat you down? Or they might just start to do it. So regardless if they ask you or not, don't consent to that search. Don't say, sure, you can pat me down, or just be quiet because you're nervous. What you have to do is you have to protect your right that you are not consenting to this search. You verbally have to say it. So when they start to pat you down, you should say, I do not consent to this search. Repeat after me. I do not consent to this search. Now that may not stop the search, but it could protect you from challenging it later in court. Now, this is sort of counterintuitive, where we tell people not to physically fight off the cops or back up or try to get them off of your legs or whatnot, because that, as we know, can escalate quickly into violence. And of course, we know any interaction can be escalating into violence just depending on who you are. But just so you can de-escalate the situation, try to get out safely, you should physically comply. Just put your arms out if they tell you to. Don't back up. Don't try to push them off. but still keep saying, I do not consent to this search, okay? And say it loudly, because we just had that awesome cop watch training where if somebody's recording, you want them to be able to hear that you're saying that stuff, and later you could give that video to their attorney. And also, if you are filming an arrest, be careful to not just immediately upload it onto YouTube or something, and check with the person you're filming or their lawyer, because that can often contain sensitive information for their case. So now they've patted us down, we've said I do not consent to this search. This is where for our purposes there could be an arrest, right? So if they don't just let you go, they're likely at this point going to arrest you. So whether they read you your rights or not, often in New York they don't read you your rights anymore. They will book you, take you down to the precinct, and maybe read them to you later if they're going to try to question you. But your Miranda rights apply the minute you're arrested, the minute the cuffs go on, the minute you know you're going to the squad car, you're being taken to the precinct. So whether they read you your rights or not, the minute you're arrested, if you forget everything else from this training, you should immediately say that the last set of magic words is, I'm not talking without my lawyer. Repeat after me.
I'm not talking without my lawyer.
Now, it's important to say I'm not talking and without my lawyer, because those are two separate constitutional rights. I'm not talking, my right against self-incrimination, 5th Amendment. Without my lawyer, my 6th Amendment right to counsel. If you only say I'm not talking, they can wait for a reasonable period of time to try to reinterrogate you and pressure you. But after that, it's up to you to keep that bubble of protection up. So if you start talking, you say, oh, I'm not talking about my lawyer, but I want to tell you one thing, now you've burst that bubble, and now you've, again, now consented to being questioned into talking. So you have to keep doing that. And then, so...
That sounds nice if you got training. The kids in the street don't talk like that.
Right.
They might say, I ain't saying shit.
Right.
Is that good enough?
Yeah, you could, I mean, well, I ain't saying shit without my lawyer. If you want to, like,
So the lawyer
you got to
has
make sure, whatever way you want to convey, you can give in any way you want, but just conveying that you're not going to talk, I'm shutting up, you know, don't try to question me, but I want my lawyer. Anything that's not talking and lawyer, right? Just make sure you do those two things together. Yeah, it doesn't have to be in that formal, stupid, legalistic language. Sure. So, and again, we know that interactions don't always go this way. Cops often just come up and slam people against a wall and start to search them and skip over the nice, can I talk to you? And oh, you're not free to all that stuff. So you have to adapt to the situation. So if that happens, cops just come up, throw you against a wall and try to start to search you, it would make more sense to be like, okay, I don't consent to this search, you know, and I'm not talking, you know, like just adapting to what is happening. The only other things we would say is when you go out in the streets, as most people probably know, don't carry anything on you, just in general, that you know that could end up in the hands, everything could end up in the hands of the cops. If you're arrested and booked, they can, you know, take everything. Put your phone on a numerical lock, not just a thumbprint lock. They can force you to open it with your thumbprint. You know, don't carry, you know, weapons or drugs on you, and also clear your warrants, just in general. Because if you have a warrant for even peeing on the sidewalk or riding your bike on the sidewalk and you never cleared it, it was a pink ticket, you never paid it, didn't show up, you have a warrant out for your arrest, which means if you're ever then arrested for some crime, they'll actually hold you through the system rather than maybe letting you out of the precinct early because you have that warrant. Okay. Cool. There's Know Your Rights information online. You can go to Flex Your Rights. It's a YouTube channel where you can watch interactions of police stopping people and what to say, how to do it. The National Lawyers Guild has Know Your Rights pamphlets online. You can print out the booklets, carry them on you, share them with people so that people know them. And thank you. We're so proud to be here in solidarity with all of you all today. Thank you. Thank you.
Black people were dragged here as slaves to work, building up the wealth and power of this country without recompensation. Slavery officially was ended, but then black people were still locked down on the plantation. Slavery by another name, Jim Crow segregation, lynch mob terror. Then after World War II, they needed black people to work in the factories. Them factories is gone. They don't need black people in the same kind of way. They've got people that they can't exploit profitably. And their response to that, and not just in this country, it's happening in Brazil, it's happening in the Philippines, is to launch a police state clampdown. This has been going on for a couple decades. When I formed the Stop Mass Incarceration, when I formed October 22nd Coalition to Stop Police Brutality, and Nicholas was there right at the start with that, we were beginning to look at this. In the last 5-10 years, I've been talking about black people are being hit by a slow genocide. And the spearhead of that slow genocide is police terror and mass incarceration. We got to be clear on that because that's what this system has in store for black people. We also got to be clear that this genocidal assault, then you got Donald Trump stepping in saying, I'm going to take the gloves off the police. Now we know the police ain't got no damn gloves on. So he ain't taking gloves off the police. He is cheerleading for police brutality and murder, calling for more of it, escalating that horror. The Department of Justice reinstituted mandatory minimums. That's what warehoused hundreds of thousands of black people in jail. Mandatory minimum sentences for drug possession, stuff like that. So this is what we're up against, and Trump is stepping in to escalate it. And he's not just targeting black people, but he is targeting black people. He's going after Muslims. He's going after immigrants. He's going after LGBTQ people. Targeting women. Threatening war with North Korea, all of this stuff. And see, I'm also part of Refuse Fascism that is calling on people to act on November 4th, to go into the streets and stay in the streets to drive the fascist Trump-Pence regime from office. But when and people should do that and talk with me about it. I don't know if Steve has any information on that here.
Yes, we do.
Okay, so talk with Steve to get that information. But when I say drive Trump out of the Trump-Pence regime out, I don't mean to go back to the way things were before. That's why I did that piece earlier about, we talking about a genocidal thrust on black people. We're talking about horrors that predated Donald Trump. I got to bring Charlottesville in here because I was down there too. And in the events in Charlottesville, what you see is a new civil war in this country. And we saw one side in that civil war moving with great determination. Those white supremacist thugs who are the shock troops for beating fascism into place in this country. They came with Confederate flags, Nazi banners, pipes, clubs, shields, and some of them had guns.
Pepper spray.
I had a whole lot of them tell me, we starting the ovens up for you. And I saw them tell that to other black people. But they also told it to people who they thought were Jewish, people who they thought were lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender. So in other words, they're letting us know what they're getting ready for. Now, most people in this country probably don't want to see that happen, but if you don't act to stop it, it's going to go down.
Nicholas was 13 years old.
Nicholas was 13 years old.
Fact 2.
Fact 2.
At the time.
At the time.
He was shot.
He was shot.
Nicholas was playing.
Nicholas was playing
a game of cops and robbers.
A game of cops and robbers.
With friends in the building stairwell.
With friends in the building stairwell.
The boys were playing.
The boys were playing
with small plastic toy guns.
With small plastic toy guns.
With bright orange colored handles and tips.
With bright orange colored handles and tips.
Fact 3.
Fact 3.
When Officer Brian George. Encountered Nicholas. Dropped the toy gun. Calling out twice. We're only playing. But Officer George shot Nicholas in the stomach anyway. Fact 4. Nicholas's mother ran up 14 flights of stairs. To her son. After he was shot. But NYPD officers would not allow Nicholas's mother or any other family member to get near Nicholas who was shot. Nicholas died at that hospital 8 hours later. Fact 5. The Brooklyn DA characterized Officer George's killing of 13-year-old Nicholas as a tragic accident. Officer George claimed to have feared for his life. In the stairwell when Nicholas was playing. The DA
The DA
concluded
concluded
the shooting was justifiable homicide.
the shooting was justifiable homicide.
Officer George was never charged
with the crime
and remained on the police force.
Cover Joe! Cover Joe! Cover Joe!